My name is Sandeep Haridas, and I am the insurance business head for Intellect AI. This is a quick 20-minute conversation. I will be available for questions later in the afternoon. The one thing that I can promise you that you will take away from this, there will be many things that you'll take away from this, but the one thing that you won't take away would be a sales pitch. This is not a sales pitch. We're not trying to sell you anything. We are just going to share with you some of the observations that we have had based on the conversations that we've had with several agencies, several retail brokers, and wholesalers. The topic of this, or the agenda, the way it was set, it focused a little bit more on wholesale. So yes, there is going to be a little bit of emphasis on wholesale, but we're going to talk about retail brokers as well, because a lot of the life cycle is very similar between retailers and wholesalers, so we're going to cover that. Very quickly about us, we are an AI company. We've been around for 32 years. We are a BFSI company. We're a product organization, not a services company. We sell over 9 different products in the insurance space, and our market capital is about $1.6 billion as of market close yesterday. So we are a publicly listed and traded company. Myself, I have been with Intellect for about 3.5 years now. Before that, I did spent 19 years at a tier 1 carrier. Did everything from technology to underwriting. I was an underwriter, so I've seen both sides of the equation, and that gives me a slightly unique perspective that I would like to share with you today. So the question that we were trying to ask is why is now the time for agencies and brokerages across the country to invest in technology? Now, the statistics don't really matter. You can find these statistics everywhere. $320 billion of transacted business in the United States and 30% growth. And these numbers can be challenged. These numbers can be discussed. But the point is very simple. You don't invest in technology, somebody eats your lunch. That's the message. And if that is why you are here, you might as well go and enjoy lunch. But that's the goal of what I'm trying to tell you today is that tech-enabled distributors are clearly winning. When you have a dedicated system and API connection to a carrier, you have sort of assured capital for your policies. You have near 100% quote ratios from that carrier when you have a dedicated connection the way we are talking about here. Early adopters secure long-term carrier partnerships, and once those API connections are done, you don't unwind them for over a decade. So it's not just the 1 year that you'll be able to get to your goals, but this is a gift that keeps on giving, right? And as you want to add new products and you want to be an exclusive, for example, in some space, a carrier is more likely to give you an exclusive capacity as a broker or as a wholesaler if you have a technology connection with them, because that really is the next level. It's beyond the carrier contracts that you can have. It's beyond the brokerage contracts that you can have. This really seals the deal because you now have invested in technology. And these investments are not very expensive, but not everybody's doing it. And that is what gives you the advantage, gives you the edge. So what does the distribution ecosystem look like? We sell 2 products: insurance, underwriting ecosystems, and distribution ecosystems. Today, we're going to talk about the distribution ecosystem. 2 days from now, I'm going to be on stage again, and I'm going to talk about the underwriting ecosystem. But today's conversation is focused on the distribution ecosystem. Really 4 parts. 4 parts that work with your existing infrastructure. So we're not talking about replacing your agency management system or replacing any infrastructure that you have right now. This is something that can be bolted on, and this is what gives you the edge. So that way, there isn't a shock to your system, right? There isn't a problem that you might run into where you're saying, okay, where are my tax calculations going to happen? Where are my Accord apps going to come out of? Where is my CRM? You don't have to worry about those pieces because we're not trying to necessarily replace those capabilities. In about 93% of the conversations that we have tracked so far in the past 2 years, these are capabilities that the distributors don't have. So you're actually adding the capabilities on top, and these are the 4 general categories of capabilities that you would want to look into as you think about your distribution ecosystem, as you think about your brokerage. And you don't have to be a top 5 broker in the country to be able to afford a transformation like this. That is another misconception that I want to remove. This would be equivalent to about $1 or $2 mid-sized deals that you would make at 5% or 7% commission rates, and you'll be able to afford these capabilities. So we're not talking about millions and millions of dollars of investment over 4 to 7 years. That is not the deal here. We are talking about very, very quick turnarounds and capabilities that you can bolt on into your ecosystem. So number one, submission creation. Number two, marketing the submission. Number three, driving contract certainty. And number four, driving marketing analytics and advisory services, because that is what your customers rely on you for. They come to you for advice. They come to you for expertise. And that is what we are driving through these systems and through these capabilities. So let's do a very quick deep dive on these. The first one is to create great submissions. Now, whether you're a wholesaler, whether you're a retailer, the number one thing that you need to do is to ensure that your submissions stand out. The underwriters that you're sending them to truly want to quote these submissions. And how do you make them want to quote the submissions? And I can tell you firsthand, as a former underwriter, make them stand apart by being complete. Complete submissions get the most quotes. And that is what you should be trying to do, is to drive submissions with as much information as you can upfront without saying, just clear the market for me, and I'll send you the loss runs later. Doesn't work in today's day and age, because your competitor is sending a complete submission, and they're going to get the clearance, not you. So how do you send better submissions as you're working? Because you also want to be first to the market, right? You don't have 15 days to prepare a submission. In those 15 days, the deal would be done. Forget sending a submission, right? So how do you get to create great submissions? How do you use AI to read documents? How do you get AI to create documents? And how do you fill gaps, if any, from the customer? The client is not savvy. The client doesn't know what information he or she should give you so that you get great placement. So how can you augment that information through trusted third-party data sources that can fill those gaps and make your submission look more complete than just what the client has given you, right? So there are two pieces to that equation, and those two pieces have been listed here. Once you've created a great submission, what do? You have to be first to market. You have to beat everybody else. Even seconds or milliseconds in today's day and age can make a difference. If your submission is second for the same account, for the same lines of businesses, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to get a declination. You're going to get a non-cleared email back from the carriers, and your brokers know this. So they're always in a race to get the submission. Even if you have the BOR letter, today there is enough confusion out there in the marketplace that your BOR is not going to count for too much, because that other broker is also going to get a BOR somehow because they have quotes to show. That's who you're trying to beat, right? And that's who you have always tried to beat. So you need to be first to market. How do you send submissions to your select markets? How do you know where you have the right builder's risk capacity versus where you have the right inland marine capacity? Knowing your markets and sending underwriters the submissions that they are most likely going to quote is a sure shot way of increasing your quote ratio. Rather than sending them junk, rather than sending them submissions just for the sake of submitting, in today's world, there is nothing called as blocking the market. The carriers have wisened up. They have implemented their own underwriting workbenches. They know who they want to clear and who they don't want to clear, right? So there's no more point about playing games anymore. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to select those right markets. We're trying to find the right underwriters in these large organizations, the tier 1s and tier 2s, where you could have 7 or 10 different underwriters in a single office who could help you, but you have to find that one underwriter who is going to quote that account because they have worked with you on similar risks before. So technology that helps you pinpoint who is going to quote to you and then support the full clear to issuance life cycle. There's a whole life cycle that has to be managed in your process, and that is where you're tracking clearances. The clearance emails that you get could have multiple data points in it. We generally track 5 data points on every clearance email that you receive. How do you extract those elements without having the broker or a CSR go into the system and type and saying who has cleared you and who has not cleared you? How do you use AI to read those emails, to ingest those emails, and automatically track clearances, automatically track quotes, the difference between quotes and indications? Brokers know the difference between quotes and indications, and your goal is to get solid quotes, not just early indications, right? So what is the technology that is going to help you drive that business forward, and truly support your entire clearance through issuance process in a single workbench, in a single pane of glass, so that brokers in your organization can spend more time in the field building relationships with clients, building relationships with underwriters, rather than being chained to their desk because they have 15 opportunities to enter into an agency management system. And lastly, the account lifecycle. The account doesn't end when the policy is issued. The account's lifecycle kind of begins after the policy is issued. So how do you keep track of every transaction, every subsequent transaction that has to happen on that policy once it has been issued? And that is what your workbench should be able to do. Your desktop application should be able to handle the full lifecycle through a very sophisticated user experience and even AI that can keep the process moving forward without the broker having to come in and press buttons. Third, now that you've started receiving your quotes, now that you've started receiving your binders, now that you've started receiving your policies, your E&O is on the line. They have to match. They have to be precise. So what is the process today? The broker prints everything out and then goes in with a highlighter and starts highlighting and checking if all the endorsements that are supposed to be on the policy are on the policy. If all the endorsements that were supposed to be, or the exclusions that were on the binder have all carried over onto the policy, and everything that was on the final quote has carried over to the binder. You are comparing and contrasting the same information over and over and over again. And especially if you're placing a shared and layered score in the excess casualty world, you're working on high excess, you have to ensure that all the layers match. That's not an easy task. And that's what our brokers are doing today. That's what people who should be out wining and dining clients, building relationships and driving the market, they are sitting in their offices with these highlighters and markers and trying to ensure that there is contract certainty. So that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to confirm that all the quotes that you should have received, there's no gap in coverage, whether from a limits perspective on a tower or from an endorsement perspective, there is no gap in coverage. And the second is then to compare these documents to ensure that there is no E&O leakage. That's what you're trying to do in the third step of the process, which is to drive contract certainty. And then how do you bring this all together? To truly be AI ready as an enterprise, so data from number 1, number 2, and number 3. Those 3 steps that we just discussed flows into step number 4, where you create what we call an enterprise knowledge garden. The enterprise knowledge garden, or EKG, is a combination of your enterprise's structured data, market structured data, and then a lot of unstructured data that you can receive from the market. All the signals that you've been able to capture in your CRM system, all the conversations that you have had with experts and underwriters and clients in the marketplace, even consultants. Not a big fan of a consultant-led world, but they're a reality and we have to work with them. We don't have a choice, right? But anything that you can glean from those conversations, anything that you can bring into your enterprise knowledge garden so that you can then build agents and digital experts that can provide expertise to your clients and to your underwriting partners in real time, and then feed this information to the right relevant downstream systems in your enterprise, ensuring that there is governance and ensuring that you're using the right models to perform the right actions in your enterprise. So that is what the Model Optimization Hub needs to do. These are all concepts that have been implemented in different products around the world, but these are the building blocks of what your technology infrastructure needs to look like. Again, nothing is scary about this. This is not going to take 15 years to build and $15 million to build. No, these are all pre-built capabilities that have already been put together for you, that all you need to do is to ensure that this is the path that you want to walk on. Your change management inside your organization is a bit more difficult than the technology piece. The technology pieces are pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Nothing here is rocket science. Nothing here is going to be something that we have to discover as humanity. So the last step in this journey, obviously, is to ensure that you find a trustworthy partner who knows what they're talking about, who has done this in the past and has built a distribution ecosystem as we have. So with that, I'm going to give you about 4.5 minutes back. But if you have questions, find me at 3 o'clock this afternoon. I'll be conducting a roundtable, and we can have more conversations between now and then, or immediately following this conversation. So thank you so much for being a part of this.